The last time my family got together, I told myself I'd keep my mouth shut, smile, nod, eat the food, and leave early. I even practiced it in my head while driving over. Don't rise to it, Ryan. Just let them talk. But I should have known better. These people have always needed someone to kick, and for years, that's been me. I'm Ryan. I'm 28. I work in logistics. Or at least that's what I used to tell them before they all started twisting it into glorified delivery boy jokes. What they didn't know, and what I never felt the need to correct, is that I'd quietly bought out a regional supply chain company after a stroke of freakish good luck changed everything. I'm talking about the lottery. The actual, honest-to-goodness, megaball, camera flash, life-changing lottery. $10 million. Overnight. And I told no one. Not even my parents, who passed away years ago. Not my sister. Not my childhood best friend. I didn't trust anyone with that kind of information, especially not my extended family, who always had a talent for sniffing out opportunity. And by opportunity, I mean someone else's money. Now, here's where things get interesting. Growing up, I was always the broke one. Not because I was lazy or aimless, but because I wasn't flashy. I didn't care about the things my family did. Cars, clothes, fake status. I saved. I invested. I drove a beat-up Corolla while my cousin Jason financed a new BMW every 2 years just to flex at Thanksgiving. And nobody ever let me forget it. The worst of them? My Aunt Cheryl, my dad's younger sister. The kind of woman who never worked a real job, but somehow always had designer purses and fake lashes that looked like they were trying to take flight. She married up, twice, and made sure the entire family knew she was now too good for drama, while stirring up more of it than anyone I've ever met. She used to pat my head when I was younger and say things like, "Don't worry, Riri, some people are meant for greatness, and some are just meant to be grateful." I hadn't seen most of them since the funeral. After my dad died, I moved cities, started over, kept my distance. So when my sister Leah called to say she was hosting a big family dinner to introduce her new boyfriend, I was hesitant. But she begged, said it would mean a lot to her. And I'd always had a soft spot for her, even if we weren't as close as we used to be. So I agreed. I showed up late on purpose, dressed simple, black button-down, jeans, clean sneakers. Just enough to blend in. The house was loud when I walked in. Laughter, chatter, silverware clinking. I could smell roasted chicken and garlic bread. Leah was setting the table, and when she saw me, she ran over and gave me a big hug. "You actually came," she whispered, surprised. "Only for you." I smiled. Most people just nodded in my direction. Jason was already 3 beers in, holding court in the living room. Aunt Cheryl was seated at the head of the dining table like she owned the place. The kids were glued to tablets in the corner. No one asked me where I'd been or how I was doing. But I didn't care. I sat down, grabbed a plate, and started eating. The conversation flowed around me. Leah's boyfriend, Mark, hadn't arrived yet, so people were speculating about him. Probably another artsy type, someone joked. Leah's always had weird taste. Cheryl sipped her wine and muttered something about men who paint their feelings. The usual stuff. And then came the moment. The moment I should have expected but still wasn't ready for. Cheryl turned to me, that smug grin on her face like she was about to hand down a royal decree. "So, Ryan," she purred, "still delivering boxes, or did you finally upgrade to fast food?" I kept chewing. Didn't even blink. "Oh, come on," she pressed. "Don't be shy. We're all family here. You can tell us if you're still living paycheck to paycheck. Just don't ask me for a loan." She laughed, and a few others joined in, though more out of habit than amusement. I shrugged. "Works fine. Fine." She mimicked, then leaned in with a faux whisper. "You know, you really remind me of your dad. Always struggling. Always pretending he didn't mind being broke." Her voice dropped lower. "You'll always be broke, just like your dad." Silence. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Like my father was a disease she was glad to have survived. Like his quiet strength, his integrity, his sacrifices were just punchlines in her cruel little comedy club. I felt something twist in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I took another bite of garlic bread, chewed slowly, not at once. That's when the front door opened. Leah gasped. "Mark's here." Everyone turned as he stepped in. Tall, clean-cut, confident. He had that calm, easy presence that makes you like him instantly. But the second his eyes landed on me, he stopped, did a double take. Then he blinked, pointed at me, and said, "Wait." You're the guy who won that $10 million lottery, right? The room went still. Even the kids looked up. I didn't move. I just kept chewing. Jason's beer hovered midair. Cheryl's wine glass tilted. Leah's jaw dropped. And Mark, sweet, clueless Mark, looked around and added, I recognized him from that article a few years ago. They used your photo, remember? You went totally off the grid after that. I swallowed. Yeah, I said casually. That was me. And just like that, everything changed. If you've ever seen a pack of wolves pause mid-howl, then blink, sniff the air, and slowly turn toward a new scent, that's what the room felt like. All those years they barely looked at me. Now, suddenly, I was the main course. There was a beat of silence after I confirmed it. Yeah, I was that guy. Then everything cracked open. Cheryl, bless her dark little heart, went from condescending aunt to red carpet PR agent in 2 seconds flat. She laughed, actually laughed, and reached across the table like we'd been sharing secrets for years. Ryan, why didn't you say something sooner, darling? I'm so proud of you, she practically sang. I just blinked at her. You said I'd always be broke. Like Dad. Oh, come on. She waved her hand, like she was shooing away a fly. You know I was joking. That's just our family humor. We tease because we love. Jason chimed in next, slapping my back like we were best buds. Man, you really kept that under wraps. 10 million? That's baller. We should hang out sometime, grab a drink. Catch up. He grinned like he wasn't the same cousin who once posted on Facebook about how some people can't handle the grind and settle for mediocrity. Leah looked like she was caught between awe and betrayal. You never told me, she said softly, her face falling. I softened a little. It wasn't personal. I just wanted to keep it quiet. She nodded slowly, but her eyes were clouded. I could tell the gears were already turning in her head, trying to connect past behavior with this new information, trying to decide if she should feel hurt or impressed. Meanwhile, Cheryl was already on her second transformation. Ryan, you should really consider investing. Real estate is so hot right now, and I just happen to know someone who could help. Her son, Jason, obviously. He's been flipping properties and would love to partner with someone like you. Jason nodded eagerly. We could do big things together, man. I've got ideas, I just need capital. I just kept chewing. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes. I just watched them scramble to rewrite years of insults into half-hearted memories of tough love. That dinner turned into a circus real fast. Suddenly, people who never asked about my job were curious. People who hadn't spoken to me since the funeral were laughing too loud at things I didn't say. Even the kids were hovering closer, like they'd been told I might start handing out candy or Teslas. And Cheryl? She went into full legacy mode. Do you remember when you were little and I used to take you for ice cream? She gushed. I always told your dad you were special. Didn't I say that? You had that sparkle in your eye. That never happened. Ever. I just smiled and nodded. Sure, Aunt Cheryl. After dinner, she followed me into the kitchen while I was rinsing my plate. No one else helped, of course. I'd barely turned on the tap before she leaned in with her wine glass and that fake sweet voice that made my skin crawl. You know, she said, swirling her Chardonnay, your father would be so proud of you. I didn't respond. I always knew you had it in you. You were never like the others, she added, her voice growing lower. And now that you've had your little windfall, maybe it's time you started thinking about family in a different way. I raised an eyebrow. How so? Oh, don't be coy. Jason's been struggling. And I'm not saying you owe him anything, of course not. But helping your cousin out? That would mean the world to this family. There it was. The hook. The switch from fake support to strategic pressure. I leaned against the counter, drying my hands slowly. You know what I find interesting? I asked. What's that? The sudden love. She laughed like I'd told a good joke, but her eyes darted. She knew I wasn't playing along. I should get going, I said, brushing past her. Oh, don't be silly, she called out. You should stay the night. We've got extra rooms. Make a weekend of it. But I was already grabbing my coat. I needed air. That would have been the end of it. But the next morning, my phone started buzzing. Texts, emails, Facebook messages, even a LinkedIn request from a cousin I hadn't seen since 2012. They were all variations of the same thing. Hey man, congrats. Can we talk about something real quick? I've got this opportunity one think you'd love. I ignored them all. Then Leah called. I hesitated before answering. Hey, I said. She didn't waste time. What's going on? What do you mean? You won the lottery? And you didn't tell me? I wanted to stay under the radar. She sighed. I get that, I do. But Ryan, we're family. I hesitated. That word doesn't mean what it used to. Silence. Then, more softly, you think I'm like them? No, I said truthfully. But I think you let them treat me like I didn't matter. You never stopped them. That landed. I could hear it in her breath. I'm sorry, she said eventually. I didn't say anything. She continued. Look, I know Cheryl can be a lot. And Jason's a jerk. But not all of us are after your money. I know. Then why are you acting like we are? Because suddenly, everyone is nice to me. You know how long it's been since Cheryl looked at me without sneering? Years. Maybe they're just trying to make things right. Maybe. Or maybe they're trying to get a piece before the door closes. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm not calling for money, Ryan. I'm calling because I miss my brother. And I wanted to believe her. I really did. For a couple of weeks, things were quiet. I went back to work. Well, sort of. I still managed the company I'd bought, but mostly from a distance. I kept a low profile. Didn't buy anything flashy. Still lived in the same condo. Still drove the Corolla. But the whispers didn't stop. Turns out Mark, Leah's boyfriend, had told his cousin about me, who told his coworker, who mentioned it at a poker night. And within a month, it seemed like every extended relative in a 50-mile radius had heard something. The tipping point? An envelope. It arrived in my mailbox one Thursday. No return address. Inside, a printed letter and a photo. The letter was from Cheryl. It started off friendly. We're so proud of you. Then quickly shifted to emotional blackmail. Your uncle is sick. We're drowning in medical bills. Jason's business is suffering. If you could just see it in your heart to lend a hand. But the photo? It was of my father. Young. Smiling. Arm around a much younger Cheryl. The caption written in pen beneath it. He'd want you to take care of us. That's when the dam cracked. Because Cheryl never even visited my dad when he was in hospice. Never called. Never came to the funeral. And now she was using his memory as a crowbar to pry open my bank account. I crumpled the photo. But I didn't throw it away. Not yet. Because that was the moment everything shifted. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was cold. Cold in the way that people get when they've been slapped across the face one too many times and finally stop flinching. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my silence. My obedience. My place back at the bottom of the family food chain. Just now with a nicer wallet. And they had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. The next weekend, I visited Leah. She opened the door and immediately looked nervous. I didn't tell them, she said. I know. But they're asking me questions. Cheryl cornered me yesterday at Grandma's. What did you say? That I didn't know anything. But Ryan, they're talking. Jason thinks you're hiding assets. He said something about calling a lawyer. That made me smile. Let them, I said. Ryan. No. It's fine. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. But what I didn't tell her is that I'd already hired a lawyer of my own. Not to protect my money. To prepare my response. Because if they wanted to play games, I was done being the quiet one. And if they wanted to drag me through the mud, I'd make sure they were buried in it. But before that, before the reveal, the retaliation, the revenge, something happened that I didn't see coming. Something that would shift everything into overdrive. Because just when I thought I'd seen the worst of it, Jason did something that crossed a line I didn't even know I still had. And it started with a knock on my door. An envelope slid underneath. No name. No return address. Just a single sheet of paper. And the words printed on it? They made my hands shake. Because it wasn't just a threat. It was personal. And it changed everything. The envelope sat on the kitchen counter for over an hour before I opened it. I don't know why. Maybe part of me already knew it wasn't going to be another guilt trip or investment pitch. Maybe I just needed a second to brace myself. After everything Cheryl had pulled, everything Jason had hinted at, I figured I was immune to surprises. I wasn't. When I finally unfolded the paper, the first thing I noticed was the grainy, zoomed-in photo. It was of me, leaving my condo, wearing gym clothes, holding a coffee cup. At first, I thought maybe it was just something from social media, but then I realized. I'd never posted that anywhere. Not even close. Beneath the photo, typed in plain font, 10 million doesn't buy loyalty. It just paints a bigger target on your back. Be careful who you trust. No signature. No contact info. Just that. For the first time since all this started, I felt genuinely shaken. This wasn't Cheryl's wine-soaked scheming or Jason's frat bro stupidity. This was someone watching me, tracking me, sending veiled threats like it was a movie plot. Suddenly, my home didn't feel so safe. My phone felt like it weighed more. Every noise outside my window made my chest tighten. I checked my security system twice. Locked every window. Sat in the dark with the TV off, just thinking, was this really about the money? Or had I misjudged how far some of them would go? Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. I stopped going to the gym, ordered groceries online, canceled a trip I'd been planning. I even debated checking into a hotel under a fake name, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. If someone wanted to get to me, they'd already proven they could. And still, I told no one. Not even Leah. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. But something about that message made me realize just how alone I really was. Not just physically, emotionally. And once that realization landed, the cracks started to show. I stopped checking emails from my management team, delayed approving contracts, lost interest in the spreadsheets and strategy meetings that used to keep my brain humming. It wasn't burnout, it was disillusionment. $10 million, and I still felt like the poor kid in the room, just with better shoes. Then came the tipping point. My bank called. At first, I thought it was routine, a security check or a flag transaction. But the voice on the other end was tight, concerned. "Mr. Kane," the woman said, "we just wanted to confirm that you authorized a wire transfer of $250,000 to a company called Redline Investments." My heart dropped. "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not." She paused. "We caught it in time. It was flagged as suspicious and held for verification." I don't remember exactly what I said after that. Probably a mix of disbelief and fury, but it didn't take long to piece it together. Someone had gotten access to one of my older, lesser-used accounts. The kind I opened early in my windfall days, before I'd hired proper advisors. It had lower security, fewer checks. I knew exactly who it was. Jason. How? Easy. 2 years ago, I stayed at his place for a weekend before a wedding. I'd logged into that account on his laptop. I'd forgotten about it, assumed it was safe. But he must have remembered. Or maybe he found it later and waited for the right moment. I checked the login history. Guess what? Accessed from an IP in his city. Right around the time he started texting me friendly messages about working together. That was the final crack. Not the money. I could survive the attempted theft. But the betrayal? That landed deeper. It wasn't just some cousin trying to mooch. It was deliberate, calculated. And it proved what I'd been trying to ignore. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a bank. After that, I spiraled. I didn't eat properly for days. Didn't return calls. Let the trash pile up. My team sent polite reminders. Project stalled. A deal I'd been negotiating for months fell apart because I missed the deadline to sign. And still, I told no one. Because deep down, I wasn't ready to admit I'd been broken. But I was. Not by Jason. Not by Cheryl. By the idea that maybe my whole life was a mistake. That even when I won the lottery, literally, nothing changed. That maybe I'd never be more than the invisible kid at the table. Then one night, after tossing and turning for hours, I found myself scrolling through old photos. One's of my dad. My real dad. The man Cheryl liked to mock. The man everyone called too soft, too humble, too average. There was one photo, taken when I was 8. We were at the park. He was wearing this ratty hoodie, kneeling beside me as I showed off a crooked little birdhouse I'd made in school. He looked tired, but proud. I stared at that picture for a long time, and something cracked open inside me. Not with tears, with clarity. My dad never had money, but he had dignity. He worked 3 jobs, skipped meals so I could eat, took the bus in the snow, saved every extra dollar to buy me books, and he never asked anyone for anything. He didn't need to prove himself to people who didn't care about him, and neither did I. That's when the fall ended, and the climb began. The next morning, I got up early, showered, shaved, cleaned the apartment from top to bottom, threw out the takeout boxes and the unopened mail. Then I sat down and made a list. Not of goals, of rules. Rule number 1, no more silence. I called my lawyer, told him everything. The message, the stolen login, the attempted wire. He took it seriously, filed reports, froze all vulnerable accounts, hired a cybersecurity team. I felt the fog lift a little. Rule number 2, no more hiding. I met with my company's board later that week, apologized for dropping the ball, told them I'd been going through a rough patch, but I was back. I laid out a new strategy, asked for input, and restructured a few departments to bring in younger, hungrier talent. They responded with cautious optimism. Rule number 3, build something that lasts. I bought a property, not a mansion, a modest 2-story house with a big backyard and a little shed out back that reminded me of my dad's workshop. I didn't tell anyone. It was just for me. Then I started a foundation in my father's name. Quietly. No press. No social media. Its mission? To help working-class parents access emergency childcare, food, or transportation. The kind of things that would have changed everything for us back then. I gave it $1 million to start. And I hired a small staff, single moms, ex-teachers, part-time students, people who knew what the struggle looked like. It was the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. But there was still one rule left. Rule number 4, they don't get away with it. I wasn't going to let it go. Not just the attempted theft, but the disrespect, the manipulation, the way Cheryl paraded around pretending to care, the way Jason thought he could steal from me and then show up at the next holiday with a smile. No, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about setting the record straight. I spent the next few weeks quietly gathering every email, message, and voicemail they'd ever sent since the lottery news broke. My lawyer helped connect the dots. The bank incident wasn't a one-off. Jason had tried other routes. He'd made inquiries about my estate, even sent a fake job offer to my management firm to try and get details about my holdings. Cheryl, meanwhile, had submitted a proposal to a third-party investor, pitching a family retreat that would be generously funded by her nephew's recent earnings. That was her phrasing. She even included my name on the document. Without asking me. All of it, I documented. And all of it, I planned to use. Because the rise wasn't just about healing. It was about making sure no one could ever drag me down again. Not with words. Not with schemes. Not with guilt. And when the time came, I'd do it cleanly. Publicly. In a way they'd never forget. But just before that plan took off, something else happened. Something I didn't see coming. One night, Leah called. And she was crying. Not quiet tears. Sobbing. Begging me to come over. And what she told me, it changed the entire trajectory of everything. Because she wasn't just caught in the middle anymore. She'd been pulled into something far worse. And this time, she wasn't sure if she could get out. I got to Leah's apartment in 15 minutes flat. She lived on the second floor of a modest building just outside the city, tucked between a rundown laundromat and a taco place that somehow always smelled like wet cardboard. The parking lot was dimly lit and mostly empty, but I recognized Mark's car by the curb. That calmed me a little. At least she wasn't alone. When she opened the door, her face was pale and blotchy, like she'd been crying for hours. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she was wearing a hoodie that probably hadn't seen the inside of a washer in a week. But more than anything, she looked scared. Genuinely scared. I stepped inside without a word. Mark was sitting at the edge of the couch, a half-finished glass of water in his hands, his knee bouncing like a drumbeat. The TV was on mute, casting a cold blue light across the living room. What happened? I asked. Leah didn't say anything at first. She sat down beside Mark, rubbed her hands over her face, then finally looked at me. It's Jason, she said. Of course it was. What about him? She exhaled shakily. Ryan, I didn't know how bad it had gotten. I swear I didn't. I sat down across from her and waited. She reached into a drawer beneath the coffee table and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He asked me to give this to you, she said, pushing it across the table. Said it was a peace offering. But I got curious. I opened it. I looked at her, then the envelope. Inside was a stack of printed documents, a few handwritten notes, and, near the back, a signed contract. It was an authorization form. My name was typed at the top. It claimed I was granting Jason full power of attorney over certain financial assets. The signature was mine, sort of. A clumsy forgery, but passable at a glance. That's not all, Leah said, her voice shaking again. He also had printouts of your bank activity, property records, business filings. Stuff no one should have unless they hacked something. Mark cleared his throat. And there's more, he said grimly. He bragged about selling some of it. Said he knew a guy who buys celebrity asset leads. I blinked. You're saying he's trafficking my private information? Leah nodded slowly. He's in deep, Ryan. Like, bad debt, loan shark, don't turn your back deep. I don't even think Cheryl knows the full extent. My chest went tight. I knew Jason was greedy. Entitled. A jerk. But this was malicious. Dangerous. I picked up the forged contract again and studied it. Sloppy. Arrogant. A fake signature from someone who didn't know how I actually signed my name. But if this had gotten into the wrong hands, if a bank rep hadn't been diligent, he could have done real damage. And now he was shopping around my identity like it was an eBay listing. Why are you telling me this now? I asked quietly. Leah looked down. Because I overheard a call. Yesterday, Jason was talking to someone. He mentioned a final move. He said something like, once we lock it in, we've got him. He won't be able to stop it. My eyes narrowed. Did he say what it was? No, just that it involved you. And that Cheryl had a role in it. I think they're planning to corner you legally, maybe even launch some kind of guardianship claim. Like, say you're mentally unfit or unstable. I stared at her. That's insane. Mark leaned forward. Not if they use the threats and your recent withdrawal from work to build a case. They don't need it to be airtight. Just messy enough to freeze your assets. I was silent for a long time. My hands curled into fists, resting against my knees. And then, like a switch flipping, I smiled. Because this was it. This was their last play. And they'd already overplayed their hand. They'd let their desperation blind them. And now? Now I had everything I needed. The next morning, I went to work. Not to my office. Not to the foundation. Not even to the coffee shop I sometimes used as a low-key meeting spot. I went to war. First, I looped in my lawyer again. Sent him copies of the fake power of attorney, the stolen documents, the forged signature. We submitted everything to the authorities, filed a fraud report, and got the bank to place a watch on any future account access attempts. Then we scheduled an appointment with a private investigator. I wasn't going to let this be a courtroom game of he said, she said. I wanted proof. Paper trails. Recordings. Photos. My lawyer connected me with a PI named Dorian. Gray hair, smart eyes, moved like someone who never stopped observing. Within 5 minutes, I knew he'd be worth every penny. I don't want surveillance for safety, I told him. I want it for strategy. I need to know what they're planning before they act. I need names, timestamps, everything. He nodded. Give me 2 weeks. He only needed 6 days. While Dorian went to work, I started making moves of my own. Leah, to her credit, helped every step of the way. She didn't just passively share what she knew. She actively started gathering intel. Old texts from Cheryl. Screenshots of conversations. Voicemails Jason left on her phone. Every scrap of evidence, she cataloged and forwarded. Together, we built a timeline. Everything from the moment Mark mentioned the lottery to the most recent envelope of threats. And then we started building a list. People they'd contacted. Lies they'd told. Attempts at backdoor access. It was longer than I expected. At least 5 people had been approached by Jason, all under the guise of helping Ryan manage his wealth. He'd offered them a percentage if they could advocate on his behalf. 2 had responded. 1 had filed a complaint with a financial ethics board. Dorian tracked down the email threads. 1 line stood out. He's emotionally unstable. Classic lottery crash. He won't even notice if we take a little off the top. They were painting me as incompetent. Setting the stage. Trying to create a paper trail that could be used to petition a court for control over my assets. That wasn't just betrayal. It was a heist, with my identity as the vault. But what they didn't realize is that I wasn't alone anymore, and I had my own paper trail. Over the next week, I laid the groundwork. Step 1, secure my public image. I granted 2 interviews, one with a mid-sized business podcast, the other with a local newspaper. In both, I spoke openly and calmly about wealth, mental health, and privacy. I told the story of winning the lottery, but choosing to stay grounded. I talked about the foundation in my father's name. I came off smart, thoughtful, and emotionally steady. Step 2, bait the trap. I sent Cheryl a short, polite email. Hi, Aunt Cheryl. I know we haven't spoken in a while, but I've been thinking about your recent messages. Maybe it's time we had a proper conversation. I'm open to hearing ideas about family partnerships. Let me know if you'd like to meet sometime next week. Ryan. She responded within 3 minutes. Absolutely, sweetheart. I always knew you were level-headed. Let's meet Thursday. I can bring Jason. He has some amazing ideas too. Of course he does. I agreed. Step 3, call and backup. I reached out to Mark. Can you record audio discreetly? He nodded. Already have a mic set up. I reached out to Dorian. Can you be nearby in case things go sideways? I'll be in the next room, he said. Leah volunteered to host. Neutral territory. Cheryl would see it as a sign of family unity. Perfect. Thursday came. I arrived first. Mark handed me the mic. Barely visible, clipped under my collar. Remember, he said, let them talk. Don't interrupt. Let them dig. Leah looked nervous. She'll lie. She always lies. Not this time, I said. This time, she wants to win. She'll overplay. That's when we catch her. When Cheryl and Jason walked in, they acted like we were at a brunch in Malibu. Kisses on the cheek. Faux concerned glances. Jason clapped me on the shoulder. Hey, bro. Cheryl grinned like a cat who'd just found the cream. Ryan, honey, you look so good. This new clarity suits you. We all sat. I poured them coffee. Then I let them talk. Jason launched into a pitch about managing my brand, saying he had connections with celebrity consultants and private equity specialists. Cheryl chimed in about legacy trusts and protecting the family name. They didn't mention the stolen documents or the forged signature, but Jason did slip up. We've already been talking with some people, he said, just to prepare. You know, so when the time comes, it's seamless. What time? I asked, smiling. He blinked. You know, when you're ready to hand off some of the load. Cheryl jumped in. We want to help you focus on the big picture, sweetheart. No more stress. No more bad decisions. Mark, recording from the kitchen, almost dropped a spoon. I kept my face calm. Bad decisions? I echoed. Cheryl smiled wider. The kind you make when you're under too much pressure. Like not telling your family when you need help. That was it. That was the line. The setup was complete. And now? Now it was time to pull the pin. But I didn't do it that day. I let them walk out thinking they'd won. Let them go home and plan their next move. Because what came next? It wasn't just going to expose them. It was going to humiliate them. Publicly. Permanently. And for the first time in months. I was ready. I waited exactly 12 days. 12 days to let Cheryl and Jason breathe in their false sense of victory. To let them preen, gossip, maybe even brag to a few friends about how they'd finally brought Ryan around. I didn't rush. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about lashing out. It's about letting your enemy write their own downfall, one arrogant word at a time. And they had. All of it. Recorded, archived, dated, and ready. So when the 13th day rolled around, I was prepared. Not just legally, psychologically, emotionally. For once in my life, I wasn't the quiet one in the room. I wasn't the kid sitting in the corner of the family dinner, chewing with his head down while Cheryl mocked his dad's salary. This time, I was the architect. The next stage started with a letter, hand-delivered by a process server right to Cheryl's door at 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. Jason got his an hour later. Both letters came in sleek black envelopes, the kind you don't throw away unopened. Inside was a formal notice. Subject, notice of legal action. You are hereby informed that you are under investigation for the following: attempted identity theft, financial fraud, forgery, defamation, harassment, and stalking. All evidence compiled and submitted to redacted law firm. Case number provided. You are advised to retain counsel. Arcane. From what Dorian told me later, Cheryl nearly fainted. Jason reportedly hurled the letter into a wall and screamed something about, Ryan doesn't have the guts. Oh, I did. Because what they didn't know yet was how far this had already gone. Let's rewind. Before sending those letters, I'd quietly launched a formal lawsuit, well-documented, airtight. We had time-stamped screenshots, phone recordings, digital metadata, and even voice analysis on the forged signature attempts. My lawyer, Michael Easton, had built the kind of case prosecutors salivate over. Not just civil, criminal. But that wasn't enough. So I also made sure the story went public. Not a salacious tabloid dump. A carefully curated expose. One of the podcast hosts I'd spoken to a few weeks earlier reached out for a follow-up. I agreed. On one condition, I wanted to talk about financial abuse within families, especially among sudden wealth recipients. He loved it. We filmed a 45-minute special. I didn't name Cheryl or Jason outright, but I didn't have to. I told the story. The betrayal. The forged documents. The threats. The envelope with my photo. I said it all calmly, like I was talking about the weather. And I ended with this. Money doesn't change who you are. It changes how others see you. And sometimes it reveals who they've been all along. The episode dropped on a Thursday evening. By Friday morning, it had 2 million views. By Saturday, a financial crimes blog had picked it up, cross-referencing it with my foundation and digging up public records of my lawsuit filings. By Sunday, Cheryl and Jason were infamous. I'll never forget the phone call. It was a week after the episode dropped. I was at the new house, painting a wall in the garage, actually, because even millionaires sometimes just need a weekend project, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me to. Hello. Silence. Then a slow, unsteady inhale. Ryan, it's Cheryl. I didn't speak. She continued. I just wanted to talk. Please, just hear me out. Her voice was so different. Smaller. Strained. Like all the oxygen had been sucked out of her royal kingdom, and she was left gasping in the ruins. I made mistakes, she said. I got caught up in things. Jason too. We thought we were helping. We thought if we could just, get ahead a little. I said nothing. You don't understand what it's like. To see someone like you win everything. When we've been trying for years. When we watched your dad struggle and thought we'd never end up like that. And then, there it was. The mask slipping. The disgust at my father's memory, still rotting inside her even when she was begging for mercy. I just want this to go away, she whispered. We're family, Ryan. Please, let's not do this in court. I finally spoke. It's not going to court. She paused. It's not. No, because I already settled it. What do you mean? I could hear the dread creeping in. I dropped the criminal charges. Told the DA I didn't want jail time. Not worth the stress. Oh my God, thank you. But I filed something else instead. What? A permanent restraining order. Against you and Jason. You can't come within 500 feet of me, my home, or my company. It was approved this morning. Dead silence. And, I added, I filed for damages. Civil court. The numbers are high. You'll see them soon. But, how can you? Because you signed things, Cheryl. You left trails. You played stupid games. She was sobbing now. I was your family, she choked out. Your aunt. You're really going to ruin us. No, I said. You did that all on your own. Then I hung up. I blocked the number. And I went back to painting my garage wall. Jason tried to fight the charges. He lawyered up. Claimed he was manipulated. Said he was trying to intervene in a moment of crisis. His defense was laughable. The emails alone demolished his case. The judge didn't buy a word of it. He was fined $125,000 in damages, required to attend a financial ethics program, and issued a restraining order identical to Cheryl's. His business? Gone. He lost his license after the fraud report went public. His BMW was repossessed. His apartment lease terminated. Last I heard, he was crashing on a friend's couch, spiraling on Twitter about how money corrupts families. No one responded. Cheryl faded into silence. She deleted her Facebook, removed her name from every family group chat she'd once ruled over like a queen. Her wine club politely suggested a break. Even Grandma stopped calling. And Leah? She never left my side. She stayed honest, stayed helpful. And after it all, she looked me in the eye one day and said, I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I should have defended you years ago. I just nodded. Because we both knew the truth. You can't rewrite the past, but you can decide how it ends. Today, my life is quieter. I still run the foundation. We're expanding to 3 new cities. I take meetings from a sunlit office that overlooks a little lake where ducks paddle like they've got nowhere to be. I drink my coffee slow. My phone barely rings. And when I think about my father, my real family, I think about the birdhouse he helped me build. Crooked, clumsy, but ours. And I think about what he would have said if he saw me now. Not about the money, but about the peace. About the strength it takes to stay kind in the face of cruelty. To rebuild when no one claps for you. To be the man they never saw coming. They tried to steal everything from me, but I didn't lose a thing. Because in the end, they weren't worth keeping.